A quick note before we start, you can find all links and resources discussed in the video description, and please use them to support us. Please also comment, share your opinions and ask any questions. Thank you and enjoy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cameron. I am a graduate of Wrocław Medical University. I graduated in 2020 and I initially went to the UK, worked in the UK in the academic foundation program, and now I have transferred over to Ireland, for which I've been in Ireland for 2 years now. I am originally from Ireland, so I do have an Irish passport, and that is a bit pertinent when it comes to your application process, and we'll delve into that in a few minutes. Uh, my dear friend and good colleague here, Dr. Wassiee, is a graduate of Katowice Medical University. Hadia, you graduated in 2020, as far as 2022?
2022, yeah.
2022, absolutely. Also from Ireland, and did the internship program directly here in Ireland from Katowice University. So we're going to give you a little rundown of what internship is in Ireland, how it works, what the application process is like, things to look out for, and then we'll also discuss the IEEA exam. Please note that we're not doing this for any financial gain. We're just doing this to help people out in the best way that we can. We'll try and answer any questions you might have to the best of our ability, but there is also an extremely helpful document on the Medical Internship Program's website. It's called HBS Recruitment Services. We can put that link in the chat for you, and there's a very important document there which covers everything in great detail on how the application works. So initially, internship in Ireland. Internship is your first year working as a doctor in the healthcare system, in which you have a provisional license to practice. So this is a time in which you're transitioning between being a medical student and a fully licensed doctor to practice. So of course you have your medical degree, you're fully qualified, your title is a doctor. However, in the UK, Ireland, Malta, and a lot of other countries in the Anglosphere, there's this transition process in which you must perform a year or two to obtain full license to practice. So in the UK, as you might know, the foundation program consists of 2 years, and you get your full license to practice at the end of the first year. In Ireland, it's a 1 year process, and at the very end of it, you have a full license to practice, which allows you to then be eligible to apply for specialty training. So internal medicine specialty training, as both Dr. Wassiee and I are both doing, or in other specialties such as surgery or what have you. So, and we can absolutely talk more about what post internship looks like in Ireland and what your options are there towards the end of the conversation. So, I'd like to hand you over to Dr. Wassiee for a moment just to talk to you about the day to day of being an intern in Ireland.
Thanks, Cameron. So when you come to Ireland for the internship, it's a year-long internship, and you can choose to do it, or depending on the post that you get, it's either in the same hospital or it'll differ. So you'll do 6 months in one hospital or 6 months in a different hospital. You have to do 6 months of medicine and 6 months of surgery, and they can be, you can start with surgery and then go into medicine, or you can start with medicine and then go into surgery. My advice would be to start with medicine, because when you're in surgery, you end up having to look after a lot of medical emergencies by yourself. So if you've already done your medical rotations, you're just that bit more prepared for them, and it's not as daunting when you're there on your own on the wards. The posts that you get to choose from, they're on the HSE website, on the HSE intern website, and if you have just a little search for them, you'll find there's about 300 posts. And from those posts, they'll ask you to rank 50, so 50 of the best spots for you. Coming from, I would say, even Poland or any other university within Europe, I would shy away from maybe starting off in Dublin. I find Dublin to be quite difficult to find accommodation. It can sometimes be a lot more busy in the hospitals compared to other places. So if you're going to go to Ireland, I would choose peripheral hospitals like Galway. It's a great city. you'll find a lot of foreign students there that you can kind of have similar stories and be able to help them, and they'll be able to help you. Places like Cork and Waterford, where I am, are also a lot better, I found, than starting off in Dublin. So if you're going to do that, think about, or if you're going to come to Ireland, think about the posts that you want, places that you're interested in. So specialties that you've thought about yourself, and then pick those spots. And then the rest of them, so this, I'd say the first 20 might be the ones that you're interested. After that, it's kind of hard because they're all very similar. After that, pick spots in locations that you think might be good. So, you know, you've heard Waterford is good, maybe go there. You've heard Galway is great, maybe go there. The intern year itself, you've got a lot of support, which I really liked about the program in Ireland. When you start off, you're given an induction week where you get to shadow other doctors working, or other doctors who you are taking over from. So that was quite helpful because you're not put onto the wards just straight away on your own. And then throughout the year, you have teaching sessions, and you have to attend all the teaching sessions. You'll have to have sort of like a report filled in by every rotation that you complete. So you'll complete 4 rotations, and you have to complete 4 reports at the end of that. They'll be signed by someone who is assigned to you or one of your consultants. I've really enjoyed my intern year in Ireland. I think, especially for me, Waterford was just such a lovely hospital. Everyone was very kind. It was a really easy place to get around. So I really recommend coming to Waterford. And I met Cameron there, so.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Hadia. So absolutely, your quality of life in peripheral areas of Ireland, you might find, is actually better. Dublin is, of course, a wonderful city with great clinical institutions. However, they are rather competitive, and that is quite pertinent because as foreign applicants, we are ranked behind domestic applicants when it comes to the matching process. So therefore, it may be wise to not put all of your eggs in the Dublin basket, but rather look for peripheral hospitals that have rotations that suit you. So it's better off, for example, to rank a hospital such as Waterford or Galway or Cork or Limerick first, and then therefore be able to have a greater choice of rotation selections within that hospital. Rather, if you apply for all of the Dublin hospitals, which I believe there's 6 or 7 in total, all as your first preferences, then you may find yourself getting the scrap rotations, which may not have specialities that appeal to you. So that's something to take in mind. When it comes to general life as a doctor in Ireland, having worked in the UK and in Ireland, I can say that Ireland is a excellent country when it comes to financial reimbursement for your work here. We do have very decent, highly competitive pay by EU standards. Our working hours are largely protected under the European Working Time Directive, and quite importantly, your on-call work, which there is a lot of as an intern and beyond in Ireland, is reimbursed with bonus overtime pay. So you can claim a lot of overtime pay if you're doing a lot of overtime work. So you won't find yourself financially struggling, whereas I found myself very much doing that initially when I was in the UK and I was receiving an NHS salary. When it comes to the quality of training in Ireland, it's quite similar to that of the NHS or the UK training bodies. You must achieve certain training outcomes in your internship, and that will be guided by your intern coordinator, which will be present in every hospital. On the day-to-day, your job as an intern, with the daytime with the team, you'll be going on ward rounds, attending to the patients with your team, performing clinical tasks such as phlebotomy, such as basic surgical and medical procedures. And then on your on-call period, you may find yourself also, like Dr. Wassiee mentioned, you are the first port of call in the hospital for patients who are deteriorating or who are unwell. So nursing staff have concerns over their patients. You will be sort of generally the first port of call to tend to these patients and be expected to escalate that matter up the chain of command in the hospital as needs be.
Sorry
So,
to interrupt you, Cameron. I would say from everyone that's viewing, I'd say probably half of you are quite interested in surgery, and it's your first instinct is like, I really want to get in there and I really want to start with surgery. The reason that we're telling you not to do that is because you need to get used to the system. You need to get used to the system of the hospital. You need to get used to the patients, the nurses, and all of that before you delve into that specific surgery rotation that you want to do. So you want to do it when you're ready, when you know how the system works, when you know how to ask for help, who to go to, all that kind of stuff. If you're thrown into the surgery rotation of your dreams for the first week, you have no idea what's happening or what you're doing, where you're meant to be, which is probably going to happen to a lot of us, even with all the guidance that we're given. It's just not ideal, and you'll see that you've kind of failed to make the most of the rotation that you were most looking forward to. So if you want to pursue a career in surgery, I would just, or even if you're not, I would just also recommend to do your surgery rotations later in the year.
absolutely. And, as I think you should all be very proud of yourselves having gone through medical school in Poland. I think we all know, no matter where you are in Poland, it's an immense amount of work, and it really is. They test your theoretical knowledge to the max, and after having taught in a UK university and an Irish university for medical students, I can tell you that our theoretical knowledge in Poland is excellent. However, the Irish system is somewhat different to what we were exposed to in Poland. Your theoretical knowledge will only take you so far, and there are some practical skills that you have to get along the way. I wouldn't be too afraid because you do learn on the job, and there are a lot of people, interns who are just about to go up to an SHO or SHOs who are there already in the hospital who have gone through the similar thing that you have and will be very happy to guide you through learning those practical procedures. You'll pick up practical procedures such as bloods, cannulation, to name but a few. You will pick those up very, very quickly. So I would not be daunted by that. And your theoretical knowledge that you've obtained at your Polish medical school will stand to you very much when it comes to taking board exams later down the line. And actually, foreign graduates tend to perform very, very well when it comes to theoretical exams later down the line. So, I would like to ask a little poll in the chat. How many of you have done an apprenticeship in Ireland already in one of your summer electives? Because this is quite important for understanding the Irish hospital structure and is important for the IET if you kind of know what things look like on a day-to-day basis. So while that poll, I think Eddie is going to put that poll up in a second. I think we should talk about the actual application process. So if you're not aware, the application process is already open for the internship for acceptance in 2024. So currently it's at stage 1.
Open
there
on
is
Friday for anyone that wasn't aware. So you haven't missed out on loads. It's just opened on Friday.
Excellent. Yeah, sorry. The exact dates seem to always change, don't they? Is it open on Friday? Okay, very good. The link put in there by Eddie in the chat is where you start that recruitment process. And its closing date, I believe, will be the 7th of November at 5 p.m. So the 7th of November at 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, so UK Ireland time. So this is at which point on the website linked in the chat, it entails an entire list of the paperwork you must have submitted for this stage. With regards to English language requirement. So it's changed a little bit over the last couple of years. It's been updated a few times. Unfortunately I had to take the IELTS despite having done my high school in Ireland. Hadia, did you have to do the IELTS?
I didn't know. So the year before me did, and I was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna have to take an extra exam. You know, it's quite an easy exam for those of us who are learning in English or have maybe had high school in English. But they changed it for my year. They were accepting the equivalent of the high school, or like my leaving cert results. They were accepting that as a form of your like proof of your English. So that was excellent for my year, and I think they're continuing that on this year as well. For anyone that's unsure if your high school is or your high school grades are accepted or not, it's only for students who were taught in Ireland or the UK. So if you did high school in Germany, or if you did high school in somewhere else in Europe or somewhere else outside of Europe, it's not accepted. So you will have to take an English exam. And they only accept two forms of the exam. I think it's the IELTS and
the OET.
That's the other one, yes. So they're the only other two that they accept. But if you're coming from, or if you studied in Ireland, if you did your high school or leaving cert in Ireland, or if you did them in A levels in the UK, they will accept those grades. It's just like a certificate of your overall grades from that exam.
With a supplement as well from your university stating that your education in med school in Poland has been in English throughout. So if you're able to provide an A levels or a leaving cert plus a letter from your university stating that you are exempt because of the fact that all of your high school and med school has been in English, then you're okay. Otherwise, unfortunately, you have to take the IELTS. Now, for those of you who are not already in 6th year, so I believe there are some 4th and 5th years here in the chat as well, an optimal time to start taking the IELTS or OET is in 5th year. As I said, I had to take it. I'm a native speaker. I did quite okay with English in my high school exams, yet I just managed with my exam to get the sufficient scores for, I was applying to the UK as well, for the UK, and I was able to get sufficient scores for Ireland, but that was with quite a bit of study, and I was very close to not getting grades in the IELTS sufficient for the UK. So I would, even if you're a native speaker, give yourself plenty of time, because you may unfortunately find yourself having to do it more than once to get the sufficient scores. Now, we had a lot of people in our class who were native speakers, or Scandinavians or Germans, who I argue probably speak better English than us native speakers, and they had to take the exam a couple of times to get it right. So give yourself plenty of time to do that. The score requirements in Ireland are not as high as that of in the UK when it comes to the IELTS. I believe you must have an overall band of 7. Your average overall must be 7, but you must not score lower than 6.5 in each individual subsection of the IELTS. If I am mistaken in those grades, it is available, all of this information is available on this HBS recruitment website, which is the Irish Internships recruitment website, linked by Eddie in the chat. So, sorry, Hadia, it looks like you want to say something.
I was just going to say, for anyone that's planning to apply, there's a lot of dates and a lot of things that you need to remember. Print out the application, have it sitting on your desk, read through all of it entirely, even sections that you feel might from the outside not look relevant to you. Read through all of it, highlight the dates that you need to submit stuff, and highlight the documents that you need to submit in 2 different colors. That way, as you get them together, just tick them off, and as the dates come by, you're looking at your calendar and you're keeping an eye. Because if you try to remember all of these dates and all of these documents, you're going to find yourself kind of a bit frantic 2 or 3 days before the deadline. So print it off and have it like with you at all times.
Absolutely. And that then goes to the IEA, which I'd like to circle back to and leave that to later on in the conversation, because that's a very big topic. So there is an exam that you must perform. It's going to be online this year. It's in 2 parts. We'll circle around that in a moment. Let's talk about what comes after you've submitted part 1 of the application. You go in, you sit the exams. What happens after? Hadia, can you talk us through after you've done the IEEA? What things look like? Because that's the point at which I retracted my application to Ireland as I had a job offer in the UK.
So you've taken the exam, which is in January. It takes about 2 weeks for them to reply to you. They reply and say, we're going to offer you a post. They'll send you the document and a link where you have to rank all of your posts that you want to do. You'll do that. After that, they will start asking for a few more documents. One of the other documents that they ask for is ACLS or BLS. So I, being someone who just thought that I knew all the dates and all the documentations that were required, I forgot to have a look at my BLS, and it was actually out of date at the time. So I had about a week to get my BLS or ACLS, which was quite difficult because there wasn't any in Poland at that time. And I had to fly home to Dublin to take an ACLS course in Dublin and then fly back the next day, just with how everything was at that time. So don't do that. You have been told right now that you need an ACLS or a BLS certificate that is valid for 2 years, and it has to be valid. It can't like run out in July, because July is when you start your internship. So if it runs out in August, they will ask you for a new one and it won't be valid. So it has to be valid for, I think, at least 1 year while you're an intern. So if you haven't done BLS or ACLS, even ask your university. I know our university provided BLS, but the timelines just didn't work for me. Your university might provide you with an ACLS or a BLS course that you can ask them to do within a certain timeline to make it valid for your application. So it needs to be valid for 2 years, and it needs to not run out within the first year of you being an intern. So that's something you need to look out for after you've gotten your acceptance and you've ranked your places. After that, it's just more kind of very, very small documentation, like, do you have a place to stay? Do you need help with finding accommodation? All that kind of stuff, which is very small. And once you've gotten to that stage, I think you'll be able to look after that yourself. But the BLS or ACLS certificate is an important thing, and they will not accept your application if you don't have that, and if it's not valid within the first year of your internship.
Precisely. And that also takes us to the stage 2 of the application. So this comes to the touchy subject of centiles and your final qualification. So I understand there's a big proportion of you here in the chat from Wrocław, Łódź, Białystok, and Bydgoszcz. And I know that a lot of these universities finish at different times. For us in Wrocław, it was quite uncommon, with a very small portion of students who were applying to Ireland, none in fact before, who had ever applied to Ireland, to get your grades in time. So what I would advise now is approaching your professors and your dean, if needs be, as an individual or as a whole group, and ask them for preterms as soon as possible in each semester. Now is when you have to start studying for finals. There's no two ways about it. And you need to be applying for as many preterms as you can, or get professors to create preterms. And I'm sure your local student council or your year president can help you in that matter, because come June 13th, you need to have graduated. You need to have your final medical degree come June 13th to have that sent off back to the Irish application system and get ready for starting in July. Ireland starts in July internship, as opposed to the UK, which starts in August, and therefore there is somewhat of a time pressure in the second semester. I would not leave this to the last minute. I would start planning for an early graduation as soon as possible. I would probably go in on Monday and discuss this with your dean, if it's an uncommon thing to have graduated at that point. With regards to then the ranking process. So Hadia, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I've been reading through the most recent publication from the intern program that there is a hierarchy. So
Yeah.
there's this rumor that Ireland treats foreign graduates with a bit of let's say what's the correct term? I don't want to say prejudice, but rather it puts us on the back foot. This, unfortunately, to an extent, stands true for internship. Afterwards, it does not. So long as you either have a visa or right to work in Ireland, um, you are treated on a level playing field. However, for internship, it still does play a role in the matching process.
So it's your GPA which gives you a centile. So that's taken into account. And then all of the applicants are given their posts based on 3 rankings. So you're either an Irish student who studied in Ireland, you're an Irish or EU student who studied within Europe, or you're, I would say, a citizen from somewhere outside of Europe who studied within the EU. So of those 3, that's how the ranking works. So the first, the Irish students who studied in Ireland will get a post. Second, the Irish students or EU students who studied within Ireland, or within EU and Ireland, will get a place. And then third will be all other citizenships from all other countries in the EU will get a place. So if you do, or if you don't have an Irish passport or an EU passport, I would still recommend applying, because I have seen doctors who are working now who don't have an Irish passport. I know doctors who the year that I studied, or the year that I was accepted for my posts, there was a Lebanese student who was accepted at the same time as me, and we both got our rankings at the same time. He had a Lebanese passport, studied in Poland. So if you don't have an Irish passport, don't be swayed. You are still likely to get a place. It's just more than based on your centile, and that will make a huge difference as well.
And this also takes us to the parallel application, which is the academic intern track. So neither Hadia nor I have done it in Ireland. I did the academic track in the UK, and I did that because the UK treats all applicants for the academic foundation program on a level playing field. Ireland does not. There are 24 academic slots available for interns in Ireland, and domestic applicants, so people who have studied and graduated from an Irish university, have first preference there. So I would encourage everyone to consider applying for the academic track in the UK. And Eddie and I recorded a video on that a few days ago. I'm sure he'll be putting that up in due course. But when it comes to the Irish academic track, I would not advise expending too much of your time in applying for the academic track, because even if there's 24 applicants and you're the 25th, if the 24 applicants are from Irish universities, then unfortunately you're automatically ranked behind them.
In reality, do you mind just clarifying what the
absolutely
is? Yeah.
Absolutely. So despite it not being something that is very tangible for us IMGs, the academic track is a system in which you have every week 1 day protected academic time in which you're expected to engage in some form of research process. It could be in laboratory research, it could be clinical research, or it could be in academia and medical education. You do this under the guidance of an academic coordinator, who is normally a professor in one of the universities of the med schools in Ireland. And by the end of the year, you're expected to either have a paper, a publication, or some form of diploma done in coordination with this academic track. The academic track is also explained in the document available in the very first paragraph. It's hyperlinked in the first paragraph. All of the information about it is described in the HBS recruitment website. If you go onto that website, which I've linked in the chat, you'll scroll down. In the first paragraph, it says a guide to the application appointment to intern training in Ireland stage 1 amended, and in that you will see everything described about the academic track as well. So despite it being a great opportunity for people to get more heavily involved in medical academia, unfortunately, the one in Ireland is not something reached by us international graduates. So going back then to the matching process of regions in Ireland, like Hadia mentioned, domestic graduates get first preference when it comes to their selection of where they want to work, followed by people who've graduated elsewhere but hold EU, EEA, or UK passports. And then the third level of ranking is people who do not hold an EEA passport. Again, it is absolutely worth applying for nonetheless, because there are posts available for those people.
Sorry, Cameron, to interrupt you. Someone had just mentioned there that Ukrainians, there's Ukrainians before IMGs this year. I would suppose that's part of the current situation, and also Ukrainians would have EU passports, but that still shouldn't sway you. There is more than enough places and more than enough posts for you to still apply. So don't be thinking, oh, Ukrainians will get ranked higher than me and Irish students will get ranked higher than me, I'm just not going to bother. Still apply. I think there's something like 300 posts that they have to fill. And what happens is throughout the year, even if you are not given a post in July, if you you pass the exam and you rank your places and they just can't offer you one at that time, later on in the year, coming into August, coming into January the following year, they still need certain posts to be filled because those posts are really important and the consultant is asking for an intern. So you could potentially get a post later in the year if you don't manage to make it in July. So still apply. I would say don't be swayed by the fact that the Ukrainians are ranked higher.
And keep in mind, a lot of doctors coming from Ukraine have come with their internship already, so they're applying for posts which are not competing with you. They're largely applying for senior house officer posts and registrar posts. So like Hadia said, despite the fact that they don't have EU passports, but they are being ranked as EU applicants, it should not influence your application by too great a deal. This also, I think someone mentioned in the chat, I wanted to cover this regarding performing LEK or internship in Poland. So the answer is, if you have done LEK and stage in Poland, you are not eligible for internship in Ireland. I would advise not doing LEK at all.
I think within my year, there is this consensus that if you did the LEK, it's one exam and you just do the exam and you don't have to do a whole year of working, and then you can just apply to be an SHO. So the rankings work as intern, SHO, registrar, specialty registrar, and consultant, and you get to skip a stage if you've done the LEK. The reason that me and Cameron are telling you not to do that is because you need the experience as a doctor. If you do the LEK, which is just an online exam, I believe, and it's MCQ questions, you don't have the clinical experience to lead a team or to go in and then you are leading an intern. So you have another doctor depending on you for guidance. You'll be quite lost when you come into Ireland then or in the UK and you don't know very vital things about the system because you haven't worked here, but because you've taken the LEK, they expect you to know these things. I think that's not taken into consideration when they make that decision to let LEK students skip the intern year. So if you're choosing between whether to do the LEK or do an internship, do the internship. It will stand to you in your medical career.
Just to clarify one point, this year it has changed. Before, if you did the LEK, you were immediately disqualified from being an intern. Now it's if you've done LEK and stage. So LEK is somewhere in the middle, that you are still allowed to be an intern if you've done the LEK.
Oh,
but then the question is, what benefit does performing the LEK confer? And my personal opinion is it doesn't confer a great benefit because it doesn't stand for anything. You'd only really want to do the LEC if you want to do the stash as well, in order to go to another country as a fully licensed physician. Whereas, so just to clarify, LEC plus stash, if you do those two, you're disqualified from doing internship in Ireland, because the whole principle is internship is the process of receiving full license to practice. That's in essence what it is in the eyes of the Medical Council. Doing the LEC does not exclude you from being an intern, but it also doesn't confer any benefit, therefore, in doing it. And I would rather put my energy into making sure I have all my preterms done and getting a nice high centile. So just with regards to, I'm seeing questions in the chat. Yeah, correct. It doesn't. LEC doesn't disqualify you anymore. If you do LEC and stash, you can apply for it as an SHO. This is correct. But like Dr. Wassiee said, stash in Poland is one thing. Internship in Ireland is another. Internship in Ireland is a very, very busy job in which you go through a lot of clinical rotations, and you are the first port of call to many things on call. You truly are tested clinically, and you get a lot of clinical experiences through it. I have worked with many people who have come from the Czech Republic and Lithuania directly as SHOs. So that is the next level up in the hierarchy in the hospital, who have struggled initially very much to work in the Irish hospital effectively, because the internships or stashes in those places probably don't confer the same amount of clinical experience. If you've done a few years as an SHO or as a trainee in Poland or Czech or anywhere else in Central or Eastern Europe, then that's another story. But I certainly wouldn't count performing LEC and stash and then coming here as an SHO as an ideal pathway. It certainly does involve a lot of people struggling very much for a good few months and getting used to the job, because you basically have to learn how to be an intern again and then an SHO at the same time.
Will we answer some questions from the
Sure. We have some questions in the chat. I have a document here with questions that have been submitted in advance, and I'd like to go through those, and then we should talk about the IEET exam or the IEEA exam. Are there any questions in the chat you have answers to here, Hadia? If there are no final exams in 6th year in my university, can I provide the overall exam centiles which I obtained in 5th year? I don't see why not. I think, yeah, absolutely. If there's no final exams in 6th year, then I think your projected centile, if your projected centile is going to remain the same, then absolutely. Then I have done the MCC QE1. Does it have any significance other than mentioning it in your CV? It doesn't confer any great benefit in the application. Does applying for the academic track means that I will not be accepted as a non-academic track applicant? No. So it's only if you accept an academic job, then obviously you must retract your application for the standard track. Erin O'Regan says we should realistically avoid applying for the academic track, even if we've done quite a bit of research. So that was the situation I was in. I was quite put off and upset by the fact that we were on the back foot for the academic track in Ireland. If you really are academically inclined, then I'd advise doing what I did and first going to the UK to do the academic foundation program and then coming over to Ireland. Can you give information on how to apply for SHO and registrar posts? Absolutely. So I think that's going to be in our question list. So we'll run through some questions that people have submitted from advance, and we can talk about that in a moment. So what grades from what years matter when applying for work as a doctor in Ireland? All of them. Your centile depends on all of the grades you've done in university. I would like to know the entire pathway after graduation, including exams, OET, and interviews. So there's no interviews. I think we've covered everything else already. Interviews only apply for the academic track. And then when it comes to after being an intern. Now, what happens after an intern in Ireland? You come out with full registration, full license to practice, but you don't have any specialization. So you have to go down the path of performing a specialization. So that can be with certain colleges in Ireland. So the way training works in the UK and Ireland is your intern year or your foundation year in the UK training is done nationally, just by a board responsible for that overarching basic training as an intern. After that, it's dictated by colleges. So not colleges like in Poland, but rather you can describe them as guilds or faculties. So there's the Royal College of Physicians in Ireland, or the Royal College of Surgeons, or the Royal College of Gynecologists or General Practitioners. So these are all different training bodies which have programs available to become a specialist. And at that point, at halfway through your internship, if you know what specialty you want to do, you're going to be applying for those jobs. I won't delve into too much detail about it now, but what it looks like is generally you have to work for about 2 to 3 years as a senior house officer in Ireland in one of those training jobs. So for internal medicine, it's 2 years with the Royal College of Physicians. Upon doing then board exams, such as the MRCPI Part 1, 2, and 3, which are a little bit like the USMLEs, that allows you to go into subspecialist training. And that's about a 5 to 7 year process, including fellowships, which are posts that are given to you by the college in other countries, such as the UK, Australia, New Zealand. And those are training jobs where you go to learn something new about your subspecialty, and then you come back to Ireland. You can apply for a consultant job, which is the highest position in the hierarchy, and that confers quite a large salary, the consultant post in Ireland, and is something that I think is pulling a lot of people away from the UK and towards Ireland. The next question is, do you have to take the LEC exam for applying to Ireland? I think we discussed that. You don't. Doing the LEC won't exclude you from the application process, but if you do the LEC and the stage, then you are excluded. Is the process of registration with the medical council complicated? It certainly is complicated. How much time does it take to complete? Well, it's split over a series of submissions of various pieces of paperwork. All of it is on the Medical Council of Ireland's website. This is running in parallel to your internship application, and they require much the same documents as the internship does. Namely, you make sure that you also have your police clearance done from your home country as well as from Poland. The next question is, could you explain the process behind how places are allocated? We've just covered that. Can I apply in the last year of university? That's when I would advise applying, and applications for anyone who would miss the start of the chat, applications are now open. Link to it is further up in the chat. Great. Is Ireland conducive for one looking for a settled residence? So let me try and interpret that question as, if you're a non-EU citizen, how does it work? So in Ireland, if you reside with a job in Ireland for 1 year, you're operating on something called a stamp 1. Stamp 1 is a temporary permit to work and reside in Ireland. After completing that for 1 year in Ireland, you're then eligible for a stamp 4. The stamp 4 is permanent residency in Ireland, with also a right to work in any job you want in Ireland. Stamp 4 is basically equivalent to an Irish passport when it comes to your rights within Ireland, and also your entitlement to apply for jobs, for specialization jobs later on in Ireland. So I would say, with the onslaught that Brexit has induced in the UK, Ireland is becoming a very attractive opportunity for those of us who may not hold EU citizenship. The myth, I won't say a myth because it used to be the case, the idea that non-EU doctors used to not be able to apply for specialization in Ireland, I'm talking about specialization, not internship now, is no longer true. So long as you have a stamp 4, which is permanent residency in Ireland, which you will acquire after working in Ireland for 1 year as an intern, gives you equivalence in your application. Work mobility in Ireland, private practice opportunities. So that's a tricky area. So when you're a trainee, So if you're an intern training as an intern, or if you're training as a specialist, you cannot work in private practice at the same time. If you take a year out, which a lot of people do as a standalone job, which you can do after your internship, then you can work as an RMO, which is a resident medical officer in private hospitals. There's booming private practice in Ireland in parallel to the public system. It's financially quite beneficial, but I would advise leaving your private practice to later years once you're a specialist, aka a consultant. And there is very good private practice opportunities in Ireland when it comes to that later down the line. And I think a younger student has asked, when would be the right time to start applying for clerkships, electives, apprenticeships in Ireland, and how does that process look like? Excellent question. So if you are not currently in sixth year, if you're in sixth year, apply now. Applications are open for anyone who might have missed that. If you are in earlier years, then I would advise reaching out to hospitals directly in Ireland and emailing their medical manpower or their HR departments and asking them for posts in summer apprenticeships. Some hospitals are not used to it. However, I can say for sure that the Mater Hospital in Dublin, that's Mater, St. James's Hospital in Dublin, and St. Luke's Hospital in Kilkenny are very well used to having foreign students. In fact, in St. Luke's and Kilkenny, we nearly constantly have Polish medical students and German medical students with us doing electives, apprenticeships, all the like. So if you're interested and you're in the earlier years in testing out the Irish system and for getting used to the Irish medical system, it's very useful for the exams, I would advise applying to hospitals such as St. Luke's Hospital in Kilkenny for a summer elective. Reach out to them. So let's say you want to do it in the summer, I'd be reaching out by January, February of that year to the hospital, because they will have certain requirements of you, namely they'll want transcripts, they'll want a certificate of good standing that you haven't been involved in any criminal offences, and they will need also indemnity coverage. So there are certain companies such as the MDS, which is the Medical Defence Society, which provide insurance to medical students, or your university may offer you also with the Polish insurance company indemnity as a medical student. That's what I did. How might I apply or find out about which universities allow for overseas students? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. If you're planning on transferring as a student to university in Ireland, that's a whole different process. I'm not quite certain how that works. It varies by university to university. What are the differences between direct entry students and graduate entry students? So, Hadia, you were a graduate entry student. Can you tell us about, did that have any changes in your career or your application?
Did that have any for my internship? For my intern year application, I would say no. I was treated quite the same as everyone else who had been in my university for the full 6 years, which I think is good. I think it's great that everyone is ranked similarly. And I think even in Ireland, when you're applying for whether you're a graduate student or you've done the full 6 years, it makes no difference. The only time it really stands to you or helps you is when you're actually working and you find you're a little bit more mature than your colleagues maybe, or you find that when you're doing an interview. So after intern year, when you start to apply for training posts, if you have already a degree, that really stands to you. It gives you a chance to highlight your career. They really like graduate students because they understand that you've done a lot of studying, you've done a lot of work to get to the stage that you're at. So it really helps you only when you're applying for training after intern year. But I would say for intern year itself, it doesn't really, and it's not part of the application process. They don't ask you for your previous degree. They don't ask if you've studied anything before. So unfortunately, no, it doesn't help for intern year, but it does help when you're applying for training posts after intern year.
Excellent. Indeed. With regards to more questions in the chat, I'm just seeing there's a whole stream of them. Sorry, we'll try and get through them.
Yara was asking if if I am doing my internship outside of the EU and I'm not a fully licensed doctor yet, can I still apply for internship in Ireland? If you already have an intern post outside of the EU, then that's your internship. You don't need to do a second internship within Ireland, as far as I'm aware. Now, it might be that they might not accept your intern year based on the country that you're doing your intern year in. That's something that you need to find out yourself, and you can do that by emailing them. There's an email in the document that for the internship application. There's an email address in there. You can ask them and say, I'm doing my internship in this country. Will that be accepted? If it is, great. Then you can apply to be an SHO in Ireland afterwards. And if it isn't accepted, then you will have to apply as an intern in Ireland, because you'll have to do that after your intern year anyway. Again,
What I can say is they exclude if they know that you're, if you are already on an internship somewhere else, you are excluded from being an intern in Ireland, unless there's exceptional circumstances such as civil war. So if you're already an intern somewhere else, you cannot apply to be an intern in Ireland, but you can finish it and come here as an SHO.
depending on the country that you're coming from, so just confirm that with the HSE or in the email address that's applied or that's in the application document.
Absolutely. Does having a high centile give you big support, even though you're not a non-EU citizen? You've answered that. Sorry, yes, you have. It does.
Yeah, you can kind of read through it, and then I got as far as Yara's question,
Okay.
and then if I already done the application where I stated I'm interested in academic post, do I need to apply again and state that I'm not interested? I mean, if you've changed your mind and you're not interested in the academic post, I suppose you could just, at the stage where, actually, Cameron, you would know more about this. Is there?
Yeah. So you can, if you've decided, if you change your mind, you don't want to apply for the academic post anymore, you can choose to email them and retract your academic track application, but keep your intern track application active. Another question, my BLS is valid until 2025. Should I do the course once again?
I've answered that one as well.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Ding, 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 ding. From
Maria?
both working in the NHS and the HSC, did you find much of a difference? When it comes to the day-to-day job, no, pretty much not. I think in the UK, obviously the foundation program is a bit different because F1 is equivalent to intern, but you also have to do this F2 where you're working as an SHO. So it's a little bit different. Obviously the pay is massive difference. I was really struggling financially in the UK, not so much in Ireland. But when it comes to your working hours, you now are not protected by European Working Time Directive in the UK. The working hours can be quite a bit longer. The ratio of doctors to patients and nurses to patients is not as good in the UK. It's quite high. So there's unfortunately quite a lot of burnout in the UK. But at the same time, I would say that in the NHS, I found that the training was exceptional, and arguably they help you a little bit more in building your training portfolio. In Ireland, you're very much expected to sort of, they'll give you an instruction on how to do it, but to do it yourself, you know, you need to pursue your training, your training goals very much proactively. Whereas in the UK, they'll sort of hold your hand at the start and make sure you get through it. But all in all, I would say that I find work in Ireland as a doctor a little bit more rewarding financially, and with the time off, as well as the environment, I would say, is a little bit more relaxed and friendly in Irish hospitals. But that's just a personal experience.
Sarah has asked regarding obtaining police clearance in Poland. Do you just require your passport as an EU citizen? Yes, you just need your passport. For me, I think it was, I went to a solicitor's office and I got them to clear me. So they do their own background check, and then as long as they can confirm that you're the person in that passport, they'll sign a document for you. So that's really all you need. You don't need anything else for the police clearance. With that, I would get on that right away. Different solicitors' office present you with different forms, and you have to send them on to the recruitment place, and they might not accept certain forms. So don't leave that again last minute. Things like that, where you need to get a document from a solicitor in Poland, do those now in case that they're wrong. You have time to redo them.
And keep in mind, if it's published in Polish and then you need to get a certified translation into English, that all takes time.
If you wish
Manish,
to do the sorry, Cameron, if you wish to do the second year in the UK, so the intern year in Ireland is the equivalent of doing the 2 years in the UK. So if you
small correction there. Small correction there. So some people are saying 1 year, 2 years in UK. So the way it works in the UK is it's a 2-year program you're locked into, but at the end of F1, so I did both years. I did 2 years, F1 and F2 as an academic, but F1 is equivalent to internship. At the end of F1, you get a full license to practice, but you must stay for a second year as an F2 in the UK to work as an SHO to have finished the foundation program. Now, I know people who have done F1 in the UK, so got their full license to practice, which is equivalent of doing internship in Ireland, and then leaving the UK in the middle of their F2 year to apply for an SHO job in Ireland. It is certainly something which is possible, and if you find yourself in that situation, yes, you can transfer to Ireland after having completed F1. But note that if you enter into a program in the UK which is meant to be for 2 years and you leave halfway through it, if you ever want to go back and work in the UK again in the future, they may not take very kindly to the fact that you left them halfway through the process. So I wouldn't make that my pathway. My pathway was committing to 2 years in the UK and completing that and then transferring to Ireland. Yes, it means that you spend a year longer at being an SHO than you have to, but in the long scheme, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter very much. And when you transfer to Ireland, in fact, if you complete your F2 in the UK and then you come to Ireland as an SHO, they can actually shorten your SHO training time because they recognize that F2 year in the UK as being equivalent to being an SHO in Ireland.
Laura has asked if you can work, for example, in a nursing home if you do not get a place in the intern year. No. So to work within Ireland as a doctor, you either have to have done an internship or the equivalent of it. So you either do the internship in Ireland or you do the equivalent of it somewhere else and come back as an SHO. But you can't, for instance, finish med school and then come and work as a doctor in a nursing home in Ireland because you will not be registered with the Irish Medical Council because you have not done the intern year. So there are no other job opportunities for students like us to work as a doctor. Now you can come here and work as like a healthcare assistant, which is, you know, not very relevant to the role of a doctor. And I don't know if that would help you at all further in your career, but you will not be able to work in Ireland as a doctor in any other setting, like a hospital, a nursing home, a primary care centre, anywhere like that, unless you've done an internship or its equivalent.
Absolutely. Then the next question is from Ishiana. It says, you said you acquire stamp 4 in Ireland after working there for a year. When do you start to apply for specialization? So the specialization, like I said, is broken into 2 parts. You first do your basic specialization, which is as an SHO, and then your higher specialization as a registrar. So to be eligible for both of those, yes, you require stamp 4, which is permanent residency in Ireland if you're not an EU citizen. So what ends up happening, yes, you're right, absolutely. You get your stamp 4 at the end of working a year in Ireland. And then how do you, if you already have to apply for your job next year, yes, there is a delay. So what a lot of people do anyway, and I would not be dissuaded because very few people go straight into specialization. They initially do standalone years in certain subjects. Dr. Wassiee here, she went straight into specialization. So did I. But a lot of people don't, and that's absolutely an accepted thing. A lot of people do another, let's say, locum year where you work in a standalone post in an Irish hospital, spend that time building their CV, getting their stamp 4, and then in the middle of that second year of where you're being a standalone, as you're working by yourself, but it means it's not an accredited year. It's a contracted year with a hospital. You're working for a hospital as opposed to a training program. At that point, halfway through that year, then you can apply for training the next year.
Naomi has asked, what's a way of bypassing the deadline for the 15th of June? You can't bypass the deadline of the 15th of June. It very clearly states in the application document that your centile must include all of your 6 years. So you can't bypass any year. If you're having trouble with the graduation date and your graduation date is after the date that they've accepted, speak to your dean's office. I know someone from the year above me whose graduation was in July, and they ended up moving it to June to make it so that she could apply. I think most universities are quite flexible with this kind of thing. So just speak to your university, speak to your dean, let them know how important this internship is for you, and if there's any way that you could maybe do extended classes in order to make up for the time to move your graduation date forward. But I think legally, if that's correct in saying, there's no way of bypassing that 15th of June graduation date, and you can't use you can't miss out a year of centiles from first to fifth year. It has to include all 6 years.
Yes. And what I did, despite the fact that I eventually rescinded my application, I retracted my application to the Irish intern track, I still had done all my preterm exams in time for my centiles. Although some students were still doing retake and whatnot, I had my centile based after doing all of my final exams, and therefore was able to get a graduation date sooner in June, which was very uncommon for my university, but I was able to negotiate it in Wrocław. So I would advise you doing the same there.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave you, Cameron. I have an engagement that I need to get to in about 5 minutes.
problem.
I'm going to leave my full name here, and for anyone that has any further questions, you can contact me on Facebook. I do genuinely want to help everyone, because I was in your position quite a while ago, and I know it can be quite stressful when you have exams going on, and this is such a big application. And ask me questions, and I'll get to them throughout the day as much as I can. That's my full name. I feel like someone's going to make like a catfish page with all of my details now that yeah, all of this information. Anyway, yes, I have to go, unfortunately, but if you guys
That's fine. Thank you very much, Adia. Thank you for helping me with this. Don't worry, guys. I'll still stay here for another few minutes, and we can crack through some questions, and then we'll talk about the IEEA. So I'd just like to thank Hadia very much for joining us and helping us with this. And it would have been great. This is exactly the kind of thing we wish we had as students. So we're very happy to help you guys out with this.
Exactly. For everyone that's doing the exam, do not be put off by the fact that, I heard during my year that loads of people didn't get to get through the exam and they didn't pass. You on your own can pass the exam. You have the knowledge. Go for it. Give it your best go. Make sure you give yourself enough time to prepare. So 3-4 weeks. There's lots of information out there on people who've taken the exam before. I'm sure within your university there's past papers and things like that. Go through all of that and apply, even if you're nervous about it, even if you feel like you're not an Irish passport holding doctor and you won't get it. I would still recommend applying. They really need doctors here, and as long as you're competent and you can pass that exam, I'm sure that you will get accepted. So don't be put off by the process or the exam. Thanks, Cameron, and I'll see you later.
Thank you, Adia. Goodbye. Yes, we never talked about the IEEA exam, ! Absolutely. If you were listening, you'd know that we're going to talk about it in a moment. So just a couple of more outstanding questions to answer. First of all, with regards to the chat, regarding the Garda clearance, can you apply to it with your Irish addresses? Yes, you provide them all the previous countries and addresses you've resided in when you're applying for police clearance. Can you speak a bit about the BST? Sure. So the BST is basic specialist training, which comes after your internship. It's done either with a college of physicians, surgeons, or general practitioners, and then from there you subspecialize. It's a 2 to 3 year process, depending on which specialty you pick, and you're eligible to apply for it after internship, so long as you hold residency in Ireland. Can you do clinical rotations in the UK during medical school? Absolutely. I would advise it. I did it and it was extremely helpful. And again, you apply directly to hospitals throughout the UK, email their HR departments, again, in January, February of the start of the year, and they should offer you a summer apprenticeship. Particularly big university hospitals are very good for it. If I can do the LEC, can I apply for SHO and how to do it? No, you have to do LEC and STASH, and then you can apply as an SHO, but you're excluded from being an intern. Can you transfer from Ireland to the UK after internship in Ireland? Absolutely. So if you do internship in Ireland, that allows you to then transfer to the UK as an SHO. So with regards to the BLS course, when would you advise to take it? I would advise taking it absolutely in 5th year, same time that you're doing your IELTS. And then some very kind messages to Hadia. So thank you very much once again to her for being here and helping us with that. Could you elaborate on BLS and ACLS? So BLS is basic life support, ACLS is advanced cardiac life support. BLS is sufficient to get internship in Ireland, but it must be in date. My uni is being difficult regarding the graduation date of 13th of June. I'm still trying to get it sorted. I feel you. I was in that situation. Can I still apply to meet the deadline of November 7th? And once it's sorted, carry on with the application? Absolutely. I would still go through with the application. I would still apply with hoping for the best in mind, but I would advise applying to the UK as a backup just in case things don't work out. Does the HSC document state that one should get the police report after one has left the country? I don't believe so. I was able to get police clearance when I was still in Poland. Yeah, you can absolutely still apply for police clearance living in Poland, and because it's in the EU, it's very it's a very straightforward process. So I think now we should probably talk about the elephant in the room, the IEA exam. So the IEA exam is a 2-step exam. It's going to be online this year, part 1 and part 2. And the dates are on the website I gave you. So part 1 is going to be Friday, the 12th of January, 2024. And part 2 is going to be Thursday, the 1st and Friday, the 2nd of February, 2024. So I'm assuming everyone is very anxious about the IEA. Am I right? For part 1, it's going to be a written theoretical online exam. So what does it entail? It entails questions similar to the SJT, which is the UK and Maltese ethics exam. So it's going to pose you with ethical clinical scenarios that you must provide answers to and how you would deal with it most appropriately. They want to make sure that you're a safe and ethical physician. So how do you prepare for that? I would advise using study materials for the old UK SJT exam. There's plenty of those books online. Second of all, I would advise reading the Irish Medical Council's guidance on good ethical practice. In there, it has all of the principles of medical ethics in Ireland and specific rules and laws in Ireland that you may be asked on in the IEEA Part 1. Third of all, the other questions tend to come from broad clinical problems, such as a patient comes in with the potassium of 6.8, they're on these medications, which one of these is causing hyperkalemia? A patient has gone into status epilepticus, what medication are you going to use? It's all MCQ, and you have to pick, sometimes you have to rank options or you have to pick one single right choice. So that really will be based on the knowledge that you've gained so far in medical school. If you want to refresh your clinical knowledge for this exam, I would advise using the Oxford Handbook of Clinical Medicine. And now the most important resource I can advise you to use is that of Geeky Medics. So Geeky Medics have an app and a website, and their app is extremely useful. It's a very cheap subscription. I think it's like 11 zloty a year. And that has a lot of resources on how to write referral letters in Ireland, or in the UK, which are the same in Ireland. How to write a death certificate, how to deal with difficult scenarios, such as a patient wanting to leave the hospital against medical advice. All these sort of things are important topics, theoretically in part 1 and practically in part 2, which we'll mention in a moment. The last set of questions that you can get in part 1 of the IEEA are specifically to Ireland, such as topics around how to report abuse, elder abuse or child abuse in Ireland, or how to report communicable diseases, so infectious diseases, if you find one as a doctor on the ward, if you diagnose a patient with an infectious disease. So where do you study for that? It's quite daunting, right? And not a lot of information is given online. I would advise consulting the sample questions that they publish every year before the exam, or they'll email them to you after you sign up for the internship program, and getting an idea for what kind of themes are covered in this. And I would, when it comes to policies and guidelines specific to Irish practice, and that's why I was saying anyone who has done an internship or a summer apprenticeship in Ireland, you'll find it quite beneficial. I would consult the HSE's websites for their clinical guidelines. So the HSE is the equivalent of the NHS in Ireland. It's the Health Service Executive. It's the overarching government organization which controls healthcare in Ireland. It's the equivalent of the NHS, and they publish clinical guidelines which are important for us doctors in Ireland, because those are the resources we use on a day-to-day basis. I would also advise consulting the NDTP's website. That's the National Doctors Training and Planning Organization of Ireland, and they also publish clinical guidelines on how to deal with specific clinical scenarios in Ireland. So that sounds like a lot of stuff to study. How long would you spend on it? I would give myself about a month. I gave myself a month, and I passed the exam. I gave myself a month. I spent a week using Geeky Medics, studying specific UK Ireland style clinical problems, such as ESPAR, which is a way of communicating medical emergencies to your colleagues, or how to write a death certificate, or how to write a referral letter. I spent a week studying SJT questions, which are ethical questions from the old UK SJT exam, situational judgment test, which is testing your ethics. And then I spent 2 weeks studying Irish guidelines from the NDTP and the HSE. That's NDTP and HSE websites, and also studying the Irish Medical Council's guidelines on ethics in Ireland. Right, so that's part 1. Any questions about part 1? I'll take them in the chat now. One question: I recently received the information that is going to be online this year, so I decided to apply last minute. Do you think from now until January is enough time to prepare? Yeah, for IEA, absolutely. It used to be called IET. Sorry, I keep calling it IET. It's now called IEA. Makar, I take it that you're probably not in 6th year now. Yeah, if you're not in 6th year, in your earlier years, I would advise reaching out to hospitals in the UK and in Ireland. And in Ireland, especially if you want to come here, and in January or February, emailing their HR departments, asking them if they'll offer you a summer apprenticeship. Even if it's not published on their website, it may still exist. So if there's no other questions about IEA part 1, we'll cover part 2 now. Part 2, with regards to part 2 is what's described as an OSCE. It's also going to be online this year, and an OSCE, again, is something which is tricky for us Polish grads to prepare on. So what I would advise, again, is breaking out the video sections in Geeky Medics. Now, you obviously, because it's online, you're not going to be clinically examining patients. What are you going to be doing? You're going to be provided with stations that are online with actors, and in the background there'll also be 2 people adjudicating or judging or scoring your performance. So you will once again be posed with ethical problems, such as a patient not wanting to take a medication because maybe they feel as though that the doctors aren't giving them their optimal healthcare and they want to go and get their healthcare elsewhere. How do you negotiate yourself around that? Again, studying for the SJT questions will help you with that. You'll be posed with clinical questions, such as you come across a medical emergency. And at the start of the scenario, they'll explain to you what's happening in this scenario and what they want you to do. So they'll give you situations such as, we found out that this patient has been accidentally prescribed the wrong dose of a medication, and now this medical problem has this consequence, or this side effect has occurred. We want you to discuss this with the consultant or with the patient, right? So they will tell you what is going to happen going in there. And then you have, I think it's 6 or 7 minutes to go into the scenario and discuss it. So you might be asked to explain the problem to the patient or explain the situation to your senior. Again, tools in Geeky Medics is extremely useful for doing this. And then you'll also have some stations in which you have to do paperwork tasks, such as making an alteration to a patient's medical regime, or writing, and so you need to know your pharmacology for that, or write a referral letter to a general practitioner about a patient you've seen, or to a specialist about a patient you've seen. So you have a few minutes to quickly write a letter explaining the medical problem concisely, or you might be asked to fill out some form of certification for patients, such as a sick leave cert or a death cert or something like that. So these are all things that you can study for in Geeky Medics. How do you study it? I would advise, again, what I did for part 2, and I passed it. I spent 3 or 4 weeks with my colleagues, with classmates in uni, every evening, making such OSCE-like scenarios. So we would look at situations available in Geeky Medics or other SJT questions, and we would act them out. So, for example, I would be the IEEA candidate, and my friend would be the consultant. And then the third person, the judge, would say, right, Cameron, we want you to have a word with your consultant about one of your colleagues who has been drinking on the job, something like this. Or my colleague would pretend to be a patient, and I would have to break bad news to them. And we'd time these scenarios and we'd score each other. And there's plenty of OSCE scoring charts available everywhere online. If you just look up OSCE scoring charts from many UK and Irish universities, and also in Geeky Medics, they're available there. So I would advise actually drilling these scenarios with one another for part 2. Laura has asked, is the first part of the IEA online from home, or do you have to go to Ireland? So I had to go to Ireland in my time in 2020. It was in person. Now it's going to be online this year. Do you have these personal scenarios saved up? I don't think I did, actually. We kind of made them sort of from the back of our minds, because there's no really way of knowing what exactly comes up. But the themes, and I'll reiterate this, will largely come from SJT style problems, such as a problem with a colleague, a problem with a nurse, a problem with a patient, or a problem with one of your consultants. They will come from difficult clinical situations, such as a patient needs an alteration to the medication regime, or they need to be consented for a dangerous procedure, or they need to be broken bad news, or there'll be paperwork tasks such as making an amendment to a medication chart, or discussing writing a referral letter to a GP, or writing a certification of some sort, such as a death cert. So again, Geeky Medics is your best friend in all of this. Can you please leave us a list of your resources? Absolutely. So last time, to reiterate, I would advise using the HSC's annual. Every year they update clinical guidelines on their website. So I'd use the website of the HSC. I would use the NDTP's website for clinical guidelines. I would use Geeky Medics. I would use SJT study books for finding ethical problems that come up in these kind of exams. Even though the SJT was a UK exam and doesn't exist anymore, the problems in the SJT exams are the ones you might face in the IET. So I said HSC website, NDP. Oh yes, the last one is the IMC, the Irish Medical Council's guidelines on good ethical practice. So those are the resources I would advise using. How many stations will there be in total for the IEA? So I don't know. I can't remember. I think mine was about 14 or 15. Again, it changed with after my time. I did mine before COVID. I don't know how it's changed with COVID. And people don't publish a lot of information on it. It's a very tricky exam because there's not a lot of past questions out there, not a lot of frame of reference to go by. But what I do know is it's somewhere between the 12 to 15 mark. which sections would we focus on in the Oxford Handbook? Absolutely. Well, you're right, you answered it. Absolutely. Emergencies, so medical emergencies. So the very back of the Oxford Handbook, the very back chapter, I would advise knowing inside out. So every medical emergency, such as your narrow complex tachycardias and your pneumothorax and your pulmonary embolism, at the very back, I would advise using that. And another bonus resource from the Oxford Handbooks are the Oxford Handbook for the Foundation Program. So the Foundation Program, of course, is a UK thing, but Irish Internship and UK Foundation Program are very similar. And this is packed with resources, with knowledge that you should have as an intern or as a Foundation Program doctor. And therefore, if you study this before the IET, you will gain a lot of knowledge relevant to that exam, because you need to remind yourself, what is the point of that exam? The point of that exam is to make sure, do you have the basics to practice in Ireland in a practical day-to-day basis? They're not testing if your med school know everything, have educated you on everything they should in medical school. That's up to EU certification. They're not there to test you on that. This is not like the USMLE. It's not a board exam. Those come later. This is rather a test of, are you ethically minded? Are you a good communicator? And can you deal with problems that you'll face on a day-to-day basis appropriately? And therefore, this book of the Oxford Handbook of the Foundation Program will be packed with these sorts of problems which will come up in the exam. So I would really advise using all of those resources, and especially this and Geeky Medics. This will even tell you how to write in British and Irish medication charts. So it's extremely useful. Any idea where we can find past papers? No, sorry. I don't think there really are past papers on it. They don't really publish it. Do you know of any IEA webinars that go on Medall? No, the IEA is very specifically designed to impose you with ethical problems on the spot, and they want to test if you genuinely can deal with these problems. So for that reason, they don't create a lot of resources for it, except for past some sample questions which they will email to you. So I do apologize. I don't have a lot of these, and I didn't have a lot of these. I didn't have any of these when I was studying for the exam. I had very little idea actually of what I was going into. So I had no idea what the exam was going to look like. But with those resources that I've mentioned, I was able to study and pass for that exam. Are there any other questions? How do I study for IELTS? I must admit, for the IELTS, I didn't actually study quite a lot, except looking at IELTS, the IELTS past papers that they have and their scoring schemes. I think the most important thing in IELTS is knowing that their scoring scheme is the trickiest part, because you can speak in Shakespearean English, but if you don't write according to their scoring scheme, that's where you get caught out. So study their scoring schemes very closely. Where do you sign up to get email from resources? Sorry, I don't understand the question. Yes, so no, I think Eddie will make a Facebook group for the IEA exam, and I'll be happy to join that and answer any more questions in there. What if the graduation date is before the 13th of June, but diplomas won't be issued until after the deadline? That's a very good question. So that was my situation. So if you don't have the actual diploma, the actual medical degree, you can get a letter of conferral from your university saying the student has graduated. This was their final exam. This is their title. Their studies were entirely through English, and that is sufficient for the intern application. Do they accept IELTS online? I believe they do, but I believe Eddie has some wisdom that I might not, that he advises doing it in person. Can you do clinical rotations in the UK after graduation for people considering a gap year? I don't believe so. I think once you're graduated and you have a medical degree in your hand, that option is not available to you. Where do you sign up to IEA? Do you get any resources from the HSC? over email. So when you sign up for the internship program and you submit your application, they will send you emails giving you dates for the IEEA exams, and they will also email you some sample questions of what they expect of you, and they will also tell you the themes that they expect you to study in the meantime. But I'm telling you now, or I've told you now, so you can get ahead of the curve. So what hospitals can we do clinical electives in? Nearly any university hospital in the UK and many of the university hospitals in Ireland. One I would name is St. Luke's Hospital in Kilkenny. I would have really advised that because they take a lot of students there, and we have a lot of time for you there. And I am there, so I'd be very happy to see you there. Are you disqualified from the Irish internship program after you've applied to UK FBO? Very good question. The answer is no. So I applied to Malta, Ireland, and the UK. I had all of those applications running at the same time, and it was only when I got my job in the UK that I retracted my application for Malta and Ireland for internship. Okay, I think that's a lot of questions answered. I hope that covers everything. Thank you very much. My sincere pleasure. Good luck to all of you. Stick with it. Apply now. Even if you don't have guarantees of your graduation dates and your centiles, I was in that situation. Apply now. Get all of your paperwork in, because Ireland is a great country to work in. Don't be too disturbed by the fact that there's not a lot of resources online. I was in the same situation. It is. I absolutely appreciate it. It's much less transparent, the application, than the UK system. But hopefully, with this information today, this should be hopefully more than enough to get you through the process. So, and I wouldn't count yourself short. We always need more doctors in Ireland. So apply. Best of luck to you, and I hope to see you all here in the future.
Please tell us what you liked or disliked about the video, and ask any questions in the comments. If this video is useful, please give it a like. All links discussed in the video can be found in the description, and please use those links and subscribe to the channel to support us so we can keep producing content. Thank you, and maybe watch another video.